Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Favorite Comics. This is episode 9 in a 16-part docu-series. It's not a docu-series, but you guys understand what I'm talking about. The Favorite Comics. It's my favorite comics. Episode 9. We're entering the return to the Marvel Universe in what I consider, and what a lot of people probably do agree with, the best run in Marvel history. That's a bold statement, and I know it's a very interesting one to say, but I do wholeheartedly believe this run, this book, kind of is the thing that brought Marvel into the modern comics era. It is the one that said, we're done with the shit we've done before. We are relaunching. We are making new ground in the comic book industry, and this is what it is. This is, of course, the New Avengers, the first run of New Avengers by Brian Bendis, and of course, it is probably the coolest Avengers book of all time. That's an understatement. It is the coolest Avengers book of all time. It's still my favorite one. I've been consistently reading Avengers for a while. You know, I think there's been some hiccups here and there for the characters, and each new iteration I read, I'm like, this just doesn't have that impact of New Avengers. This book was just so perfectly constructed, so perfectly created, got everything right, got everything it was trying to say poignantly correct. It was just so beautiful and interesting. The artwork is just spectacular in the first few volumes. It makes you go, this is great, this is brilliant, I want more of this. And I just think this is the book that said to Marvel, we're coming into the 2000s swinging. We are not holding back. We are coming in hard and fast and furious and just spreading our load all over everyone. I love the New Avengers. So a little context to why this book exists. During the 90s and some of the early 2000s, the Avengers were in a really weird place where they were terrible. Nobody liked them. And up until this book, the Avengers were kind of never cool. They were kind of just like the other characters in the Marvel Universe. You know, there was the Fantastic Four and the X-Men and Spider-Man, which sold okay, but Avengers was just like that other book that nobody really cared about. There was like a weird event called Disassembled, where everybody died and they just disbanded the Avengers, and then suddenly we realized, or Brian Bendis realized, I can make them cool again. Just watch me do it. So what do you do to make them cool? Take the characters that people like. That's a great start. And one of the best things this book did was give a lot of characters their chance on the Avengers. We're going to do more ground to earth stories. You know, it's like, okay, there's a prison break. Here we go. That's the story. We'll lead into other stuff later. But it's grounded on Earth. It's not over the top or crazy. And it's just a relaunch. We are starting fresh with the Avengers. We're going to have some of your original characters like Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. But the rest of our team is going to be new and bold and different. They're going to be people you haven't seen on the team before. You know, everybody at the time who was pretty damn cool. Like Spider-Man, a character who I struggled to relate to and still really don't. This is the book that made me go, oh yeah, Spider-Man. I like him. He's kind of interesting. Spider-Woman, another character who has a very complicated history of just being on the sidelines, getting a shot at the big leagues here, which is kind of cool to see. And of course, the best thing this book ever did, the smartest thing this book ever did, the one thing I will say Brian Bendis did right. Put Luke Cage on the Avengers, man. That is such a brilliant move. He deserves to be an Avenger. He deserves to be a mainstay on that team. He should lead a new Avengers book now. He is that good a character in this world that he deserves to be on there. And of course, there's people like the Sentry who has a whole arc in this. There are people like Wolverine who join later. There are all these characters that you're like, they're popular, they're cool. The Sentry was big at this time. Wolverine and Spider-Man were kicking ass. Luke Cage has always been consistently awesome. We're gonna make them cool. And they're gonna be Avengers, fighting Avengers level threats, but in a very grounded reality. It's not gonna be over the top, magical, or crazy. We're gonna have a prison break. We're gonna go to the Savage Land. We're gonna have these small, intimate stories with these characters and build them up to be the next big thing in the Marvel Universe, which is very cool to see. Something we don't get a lot of anymore. Oh, it's just such a nice feeling. Where you're like, okay, let's start over. We're going to get all these cool characters. We're going to put them in. We're going to have a compelling story that shows their narrative and their history together. And it's going to work and make sense in context of the story. It's a really fun arc. And it went for a very long time. Like, Bendis wrote this for a long time. He went in depth into a bunch of stuff. I will say, come about the halfway point, it does kind of pander out a little bit, where it just kind of becomes this idea of, like, we're connecting every issue to the event that's currently going on, which kind of sucks. But we do get a lot of good stories in there, too. Later on in the series, we get a great arc with Clint Barton, which of course makes sense that it happened in an Avengers book. This is kind of the arc that gave us Clint coming back into the forefront and being a character that people like and respect. Well, I don't know about respect, but they like him. This is what made Clint kind of cool to the modern era, and that's kind of what this book did for a lot of people. It made Iron Man cool for the modern era. This is the first book to go, Tony Stark has a lot of money, a lot of problems, and a lot of issues, but the best thing he ever did was work with the Avengers. So here he is, making the Avengers again, realizing he shouldn't be the one in front, and it should be Captain America to do it. That's a really cool thing to see. This book handles the divide of things like Civil War and Secret Invasion very well. They play prominent roles of that. You get some great side stories of all those characters in these moments, and it's just a really fun thing to see. This is the book that kind of brought me into the Marvel Universe, if I'm being honest. Like, when it came out, I got the first 3, like, full volume in trades and stuff. I'm like, okay, I know very little about the Marvel Universe. I know Spider-Man and the X-Men and all that shit, but I don't know the Avengers too well. So jumping on here, I just thought this was a great way to show young readers, or new readers even, this is who the Avengers are. They can be cool and gritty and interesting, but not pander in like the dark and intense stuff, which is something I always struggle with when it comes to my comic book things. You want to be mature, but you don't have to be dark and gritty. You can be the mature, dark setting, and I think this book really exemplifies that. All the characters have great moments. It doesn't hold back from being something it isn't. It's just straight up telling you, yeah, if we're going to have them stripped naked and hanging over like a cliff in the Savage Land, we're going to do it. If we're going to talk about the issues of Luke Cage being on the team, we're going to do it. If we're going to have the implication that this team is going to grow and separate into something different because of the events of Civil War, we're going to do it. There's an entire arc in this book about Maya Lopez, who is Echo, and how that connects to Clint Barton and stuff. Later on, we'll see that people like Danny Rand join the team, and it becomes like a very interesting story. I'm telling you, this book is just jammed packed with all your favorite information about the Marvel Universe. It feels like somebody who's a huge fan of the Marvel Universe coming onto a book and just saying, yeah, I get it. They're lame. Well, let's kill them all. Bring back the ones we like. We're going to usher in a new era for the Marvel Universe, starting with the Avengers. What a great feeling to get. Nothing about this book ever made me go, man, this is slow. Man, this isn't fun. Everything had its moment, and every single story had its impact. And I just think you want to get people interested in your Avengers book. You get some talent like Bendis, and you just start off with, here's a prison break on an island. You remember all these cool villains that you've seen in other stuff that are kind of shitty and lame, but they have like their place? They're going to break out of their prison. It's going to be an Electro thing. We're going to get all these characters coming by. You know, everyone's going to be there. Even Matt Murdock shows up in the first arc, but he has nothing to do with the Avengers, which I really love. This book also kind of sets up like the first thing I think is really important about the Marvel Universe, and that is the respect everyone has for Matt Murdock. I love seeing that. I think it's such a crucial and important element. It kind of sets up the Illuminati in some ways, where we see all these like intellectual characters coming together to like solve the problems of the other characters and the other stuff in the world, which I think is pretty exciting to see. I also really like the way it handles the Sentry, a character who I think is criminally underrated in the Marvel Universe. If they wanted to do more of him, I think they could. And the way I think this book handles him is taking that initial run from the Marvel Knights stuff, where it's like, okay, we're reintroducing this supposed character from the past, and we're bringing him into the modern Marvel Universe. But in New Avengers, we're like, that all happened. He's back. We're trying to save this guy from himself before he does something he's going to regret, which is such a unique and fun experience that doesn't really work in the Marvel Universe, but somehow this book said it's going to work just fine. You're going to be okay with it. You're going to understand some of the things we're doing here. And that's pretty cool. Again, this book just captured the essence of the Marvel Universe and distilled it into such a perfectly well-kept way that I don't think anybody has any problems with it. I mean, some of my favorite moments in this book are just the things we see with the other characters. You know how it's like they're finally presenting themselves to the world. We are the new Avengers. And Wolverine's just on the sidelines like, yeah, I'm not going out there. You don't want me to be in the public eye because I'm kind of a little bit of an asshole and I'm kind of like a guy who killed people. I'll support you. I'll be on your team, but you don't want me in the public eye. The way it handles the Spider-Woman relationship with the rest of the Marvel Universe, I think is pretty cool. I just can't get over what this book did to Luke Cage and why I'm so upset we haven't seen Luke Cage take prominence again like this. Luke Cage should be in his own book always at Marvel. I've said that before. I will reiterate it again here. Luke Cage is deserving and worthy to be in his own title for all of the Marvel Universe. I don't know why they just don't give him a title, but I digress. The New Avengers, such a great concept that never really got off the ground for some people. After this initial run, It was like, okay, we're going to peter out with Siege pretty much, and everything else is just going to float around and not really have that impact that this original series did. And I think a lot of that has to do with Bendis. He just really went, yeah, we're making them cool again, so shut up, it's happening, you're gonna like it or not, it doesn't matter, but the Avengers are gonna be cool again. Every character you like is gonna be an Avenger, every element of the comic books you like is gonna be in this story. You like prison breaks, you like dinosaurs, you like crazy over the top shit, you like Civil War, we're gonna give you some great Civil War stuff. You want a cool Clint Barton story? Of course we're going to give you a cool Clint Barton story. Why wouldn't we? Clint Barton's a cool character. We'll just tell a random Clint Barton story, and there you go. It works perfectly. It's such a fun, captivating book, and I think it's going to make a lot of people remember why the Avengers have never really been cool for a long time. As sad as that is, it's the truth. I wish the Avengers just had more impact, but they never really had that after the New Avengers. It is the best Avengers book, it is one of the best comic books, and it is one of my favorite comic books ever. So that is my recap, who really knows, of The New Avengers by Brian Bendis. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And if you're listening to this on the podcast feed, please give us a rating wherever you can there. It really helps and it gives us something to look forward to. As always, you guys can check me out on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, all that good stuff. And I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.